Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hayden Corey here with another one for you. First off, let me start off by saying thank you guys for tuning in. As always, I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, if you like MK7 GTI content. But either way, let's go on ahead, get into this video. Alright, so today we are actually going to be talking about this big turbo some more, and whether or not it was the right decision to go with it. So should we have stayed with an IS-20 or an IS-38 even, and just played it a little bit safer, or was this the right call for me and potentially for you to do this hybrid turbo setup instead? As far as cost goes, I will be transparent with you guys. I did get a discount on my turbo to make a video on it and just kind of provide you guys some content on that. I'm going to disclose that to you guys, but I did not get paid to make the video or anything like that. It was not a sponsored video, but they definitely did help me out with being able to do that. My turbo is from Turbo Parts Canada. It is their TPC20 ball bearing turbo. It's their brand new version of it, and I got it with the performance cover housing as well as a brand new wastegate actuator on there. So if you were to go in there on their website today and try and do that, I want to say that's going to run you right around $2,300 for that full turbo setup. Now, to support that turbo, we also had to do some fuel pumps. So originally we were going to just try and do our high pressure fuel pump. We decided on the HPA high pressure fuel pump because I didn't want to have to deal with assembling the Autotech internals. We got a pre-built fuel pump from HPA, and that ran us $650. But as you guys know, that fuel pump wasn't enough to be able to support this turbo. My low pressure fuel pump just wasn't strong enough out of factory, so we ended up having to upgrade that as well. And for that, we went with the brushless RS3 pump. We ended up actually picking that from EQT, and we paid full price for that. I want to say it was around $1,200 or $1,300 as well. So you add all those things up, you're looking at, what is that, $4,000 or so for doing a turbo, and that is highly accurate. Now, also, let's go ahead and talk about install. As far as the install goes, I have spoken to a few other people that have gotten quotes and also had turbos installed, and it's going to run you anywhere from like $800 as far as the shop goes, up to even like $1,500 for the shop. It really just depends on where you're at and what kind of shops you have around you, how experienced they are with it, because if they're charging labor time and they're rather inexperienced, it's going to take a lot longer. So definitely don't go to the dealership or anything like that, but it is it's not terrible to shop around and just ask, get a few quotes and see how much it would cost to have it installed. I personally just decided to install my turbo inside my garage, did it on my back in the garage floor, and honestly, it wasn't terrible. It was not easy by any means. It's an entire turbo swap, so it's not going to be an easy job. But if you're somewhat mechanically inclined, I definitely think that you could tackle it. And really, you don't need that much tools. I'd say it's probably about $100 worth of tools that you need, and you can absolutely get it done. And you'll have all those tools for the future jobs too. So we basically covered cost. It's going to run you about $4,000 to $5,000, depending on which turbo you decide to go with and whether or not you decide to install it yourself. Now, that can be a much cheaper price if you decide to go for something like an IS-38, where really it's almost always you just need a high pressure fuel pump. You're not going to push that low pressure fuel pump that hard, especially not on stock sensors. So an IS-38 upgrade could realistically run you about $1,500, and if you do it yourself, it's going to be $1,500. If you decide to have it installed somewhere else, probably run you about $2,500, maybe even $3,000, depending on where you're at. It's not that far off of where we're currently sitting, and honestly, I personally don't have access to E85, so if I were to do an IS-38, I'd be capped at like 370 horsepower-ish to the wheels, and that's just not enough for me. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to break the 400, so that's why we went with the hybrid turbo. So was this worth it, and would I recommend it? Personally, for me, I would say it's worth it. I have areas around here where I'm actually able to use that power. If you're in New York City, you guys probably don't have the chance to open it up in third or fourth gear. That's where this turbo shines. This thing's a highway monster. So, you know, if you guys don't really have the situation to be able to do that, I know I've even had subscribers that live on like islands, and well, needless to say, they're not that big. You can't really go that fast up there. I think one person's highest speed limit they had was like 60 kilometers, which that is ridiculous to me. But shout out to that guy, he's still stage 2. But either way, was this worth it? For me, yes. Would I recommend it? Yeah, if you are in a situation where you have the money to spend on it and you would like to be able to access some more power and you're trying to get that out of this platform, I'd say go for it. Now, I will say, you would likely want to upgrade your differential. If you don't have the performance package, you're probably going to want a performance pack diff, or at least like a wave track or something like that. I'm personally looking into it as well right now, just that way I can kind of put down this power a little bit more efficiently, or effectively, either way. But I personally would say, if you've been considering it, go on ahead and pull the trigger. But in particular, if you're looking for more than 400 horsepower and you don't have access to E85. If you have access to E85 and you're looking to be right at 400 horsepower or so, go on ahead and grab yourself an IS38 high pressure fuel pump and you should be okay. You should be able to max that out and get right around 400 wheel. But if you're looking to do anything like that without ethanol or without methanol or anything like that, you're going to need a hybrid turbo. So that's why we did this, and I'm pretty sure with our current fueling setup, we should be able to get up close to around 450 wheel horsepower. Whenever we're finished dialing in this tune, we're going to go on ahead, get this car in the dyno, and see exactly how much power it makes. One thing that I did want to somewhat speak on is as far as drivability goes. The drivability of this car with this turbo setup, it's absolutely there. You can daily drive it, no problem. One thing I will say on it that I don't love is the fact that, well, I've lost all of that low end punch that the IS20 gives you. And obviously that's something I knew going into it, but I really didn't think it would bother me that much. Be quite honest with you, I miss it. But would I trade that back for having that low end punch for not having any top end power? Absolutely not. I absolutely love this top end power that this thing provides. As soon as you pass 3,000 RPMs, its thing really starts ramping up, and you hit 4, you're well into full boost by then, and it is just screaming the entire time. So I am definitely much more of a fan of this turbo setup than I was of the stock turbo, but I do miss that low end punch, especially whenever it comes to just getting around town. This is where this turbo is meant to belong, is on the highway, just, you know, cruising at least above like 50, 60 miles an hour. That's where this thing really likes to have fun. Anything below that's just not usable whatsoever. So, you know, that's whatever, I guess. You know, the IS20, it definitely broke loose a lot in first, second gear as well. First, second gear is not meant to be floored necessarily in these cars, but nonetheless, it's even more or less usable in this car because it does not grip up at all throughout first and second gear. It spins all the way into third and then partially through third, so you're better off just starting off in third and then ripping out from there, honestly. One thing I am you know, not the happiest about is my fueling situation. So I wish that I would have just gone with a multi-port injection setup with my low pressure fuel pump rather than trying to cheap it out and just get away with doing a high pressure fuel pump, knowing that I was going to inch my way up into it eventually. I should have just saved the money right out of the gate and put that $650 I spent on the high pressure fuel pump towards my multi-port injection setup. So that is probably my #1 regret. Now, as far as reliability with this big turbo setup goes, what all changes? Honestly, not a whole lot. As you guys know, these cars, they're actually relatively reliable out of the gate. I know obviously it's a Volkswagen, so everyone's gonna joke about the check engine lights and everything like that, but in this car, as long as you stay up to date on your maintenance, it's a very reliable car. And really the only other thing that gets put under some serious stress that's likely to go out whenever you do a setup like this is your stock PCV valve. So the stock PCV just kind of craps out under high boost from what I've seen, and I've already upgraded mine to the latest revision just to try and avoid any issues like that. But that is really the only other thing. As long as you're staying up to date on your spark plugs, your oil changes, your transmission fluid changes, everything like that, you should be good to go. Honestly, these cars, like I said, pretty reliable, surprisingly, to be a Volkswagen at least. So to the final question, was this a mistake or was this worth it? Did I make the right decision doing this big turbo swap? Well, for me and my taste and for what I was wanting, I would say yes, it was worth it. I don't think it was a mistake. Obviously, if we grenade the engine in the next 10,000 miles, that opinion will probably change. But as long as we stay up to date on all of our maintenance and everything like that, everything should be good. And overall, I'm super happy with my decision to do this. So would I recommend it to you guys? If you're in the position to, and you've really been considering and you're looking to make, you know, more horsepower, more than 400 horsepower in this GTI, go ahead and do it. It's well worth it. The turbo's great, super high quality. I just don't think you'd regret it. It really changes the entire personality of this car. But if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure that you smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll catch you next week.